Welcome to the Magdalene Voices, giving voice to those silenced for centuries through sacred conversations with beautiful, illuminating souls. I am your host, spiritual business mentor, catalyst, and facilitator, Maria Estella. I serve soul-driven, heart-based entrepreneurs, Magdalene's rising, and radiant beings just like you with the expansion and growth of yourself and thus your business. Bringing to life that which you are here to birth, expressing your soul's divine purpose through the work that you do in this world. If you haven't already, I highly encourage you to join my sacred circle to stay connected and updated. You can do so on my website, mariaestella.com, where you can also find out more about me, my work, as well as the show notes for today's episode. And if you have ever wondered about your Magdalene connection and calling, whether you are a Magdalene or not, I invite you to download the Magdalene Blueprint that I've created for you. Go to mariaestella.com/AYM to get it. For today's episode, I am joined by Tash Mitch. Tash is an energy alchemist, mixing life and business coaching together with energy medicine in order to help her clients gain crystal clarity around what they stand for, the gifts they offer in the world, what they value most, and what they want to create and manifest. She holds space for people to discover and recover who they are on a very deep level and gain the confidence to stand fully in their unique power and blueprint. Tash also works with people to bring this grounded and empowered aspect of themselves into the world through their business, their message, and the service they offer in the world. She is a writer, speaker, and intuitive, and uses these skills to unearth the treasures hidden deep within the core of you, bringing you home to yourself as a sacred and divine being. In today's sacred conversation, you will hear Tash and I share a deeply soulful exchange on physically embodying and radiating our divine selves. Tash, welcome to the Magdalene Voices.
Thank you.
Before we went on, I had the pleasure of experiencing what you call an activation of the divine blueprint that is always emanating.
Yes.
And this was basically, you did it to connect us and to ground us. And it was so beautiful that I asked if you would do it again, not for me, but for the people who are listening or watching, so they can get to, have the same experience. And you graciously said yes. So I'm going to start off by just giving you the floor and leading us into this activation.
Oh, thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be with you because I've seen your work and I get the pulse and the sensation of the work that you're doing. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So absolutely, it's a pleasure to do this. So I'm just going to invite us just to close our eyes, connect to the breath, and connect to fullness of breath so that we're breathing from the diaphragm and the belly is moving out as we're breathing in. Moving in as we're breathing out. Just becoming aware of the shoulders and the neck area where we tend to hold tension. And as we deepen and lengthen the breath, just allowing the tension in the neck and shoulders to melt away. And now just bringing our attention to the base of our spine and the blueprint in seed form at the base of our spine, the divine blueprint. As we place our attention and our consciousness and awareness onto the seed at the base of our spine, the seed activates and light begins to emanate from the center of the seed outwards. Just witnessing this light filling the pelvis, moving down the thighs, the knees, the calves, the ankles, the feet, and deep into the earth, activating your divinity in the earth. Just taking a moment to witness the activation of the lower half of your body, filling with divine essence and divine blueprint. And now again, returning consciousness to the base of the spine and moving our attention to the sacral, just below the navel, but above the pelvis, witnessing the sacral filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. Moving this energy up to the solar plexus, above the navel, but below the rib cage, witnessing the solar plexus filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. Moving this energy up to the center of the chest, witnessing the heart filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. Up to the throat, witnessing the throat filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. Up to the third eye, witnessing the third eye filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. And all the way up to the top of the head, to the crown, witnessing the crown filling with light, containing divine essence and blueprint. And at the crown, just witnessing a laser beam moving from the crown to around about 500 feet above the head. And here we meet divinity in universal form. We meet your soul, spirit, higher self. Just taking a moment to breathe and to witness a connection to your universal divinity. And again, bringing the attention back down to the crown and back into the body, and witnessing the light within beginning to emanate so it fills your body, filling your blood, your bones, filling your organs, your nervous system, your flesh, your skin, every cell of your body, emanating and radiating with your divine essence and your divine blueprint. Just becoming aware of this divinity moving into the space between us. filling that space with a frequency of love, of honoring, of respect, of embrace, of acceptance. Just witnessing a soul-to-soul divine connection and a heart-to-heart divine connection. And again, coming into the essence within your body. Just taking a moment to witness the radiance that is divine you. And when you're ready, just open your eyes.
I'm not sure we can go on. Having had two of these within the span of 20 minutes, it's like, thank you so much for that. What was or is, I suppose, interesting about us coming together today is that I've felt called and nudged to reach out to you and invite you into a secret conversation. But I didn't know why. and normally when I reach out to people, I have an idea of what we're going to talk about. But I was very fortunate that, the divine had you post in a group talking about being on podcast or shows. And I was like, me, come. I knew that was like, you have to be here, and I don't know why. And I thank you for being so open to it. Before we came on, and as you were doing this, you were talking about the embodiment of the divine. Yes. And I think I would like for you to elaborate more on that, because it's clear that in our day and time, there is a distinction, or there seems to be a separation between the divine and quote unquote us.
Yeah.
And with the thing you just did, it's very obvious that the divine is in us. But would you speak a little bit about the embodiment of the divine?
I would love to. I mean, basically, for me personally, I grew up, within the Catholic religion, within Christianity.
Okay.
So my parents, my mum particularly wanted me to have good morals. So she ended up sending me to a Catholic school. And as I grew older, I started to get an understanding that there was a very vast difference between what I was feeling in terms of my own divine connection,
yes,
and what was being portrayed and shown to us, yes, through religion and through dogma, for example.
Yes.
And more and more getting into opening to my own divinity, there was a sense of, there's been a separation for so long between, the sense of praying to God has always been praying to some being that's up in the sky.
Yes.
And us being this really small, tiny nothingness, praying to this big, massive hugeness, and this big divide between us, right? And more, it was coming to the fore that actually that's not the way it is.
No.
The divine essence is rooted within us as a seed. Mm-hmm. And we need to turn our attention inwards and fully appreciate and honor the seed of divinity within us. And once we do that, it allows divinity that exists all around us to meet us from a space of sacredness, because we're honoring the sacredness that already exists within us. And we're honoring that divine gift that already exists within us. Yes. And once that seed had been planted for me, it was kind of like there was no going back.
Yeah. It's like you could come kick, or you could be dragged or pulled, or you can, come freely. Yes.
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 Yeah, there was no going back, because for me, there's a power in it. There's an empowerment in it that isn't forced. You know what I mean? It's like there's no striving to be divine. There's no striving to be good enough to be recognized by divinity, which is always the way I've been taught.
Yes.
And there's no judgment either. Do you know what I mean? Yes. There's just opening, there's expansion, yes. And then there's a question mark in the midst of what wants to be here, you know?
Yeah, what's to be born. But also what I found, and maybe that's the same for you, is that there is a period of having to give up what we thought we wanted and what we thought we needed, and a lot of different beliefs. I grew up, I call it la Christian, because I've said this on the show before, but I was born and raised in Denmark, and Denmark is one of the only industrialized countries that had like a state religion, where it's actually mixed within our government and so forth. Right. And where state and church is not separated. And even though we have that, the churches are completely empty on Sundays. The only day of the year that it's full is on Christmas Eve. And they have 3 or 4 services a day, because like people are just flocking. That seems to be the only day. And of course surrounding the baptisms, the confirmations and so forth. So I find it interesting how you have to, for me as well, there's been like a letting go of what I thought, or divinity or God was. Within the thing that you just did, there was also energy moving, and I know that you're an energy healer, and something was happening, and that activation, or that's like that seed that's been planted. How do you, once you realize it's there, how do you, in your perspective, how do you allow it or activate it? How do you allow for it to expand?
Well, the seed, what we call the seed, and what I call the activation of the seed, is ultimately just bringing what is already there to the consciousness and the awareness, because it's existing, it's there.
Yes.
And we have been taught, like I said previously, like so much to strive and to look outside of ourselves,
yes,
for something that is supposed to show us who we are, right?
Yes.
And so many of us, I mean, it's a journey we all make, right?
Yes.
Of basically searching, where is this thing that is supposed to like define me and mirror who I am to me? Yes. And the funny thing about it is it's in there all the time, right? All the time we're like searching outwards, and it's kind of like, it's going, I'm here. Yes. And it's got such a soft voice that until you shut up, until you quiet the mind down, you don't hear it. And so once you actually acknowledge it in consciousness and awareness, you don't have to do anything else. It basically then begins to reveal and show itself to you, and show itself in terms of how it operates.
Yes.
So take this conversation, this soulful conversation, for example, right? You started the conversation at the beginning going, I have no idea why I'm sitting in front of you. I have no idea what we're doing here, but all I know is that I felt called to have this, open this space for a communication.
Yes.
And for me personally, that is divinity in the crux and the core of it, right? We surrender to the unknown. We surrender to the fact that we've got 5 portals, and those 5 portals will only ever give us a limited perspective of what's available to us. And so ultimately, if we surrender, we immediately have access to more. Yeah. But we've been taught so much that basically we must know what's going on. We must have it, we must have it. We must have the line, we must have the structure, we must have the box in place.
Yes.
So a lot of us go into anxiety when there is no box, and we go into a little bit of deep fear when there is no strategy and line. But ultimately, when we allow all of that to dissolve and we just allow divinity, we get shown exactly, we get pointed to exactly where we need to be and what we need to be.
Yes.
So the point is, can we allow ourselves that space for that to happen?
And it's crazy, like, because for me, I call myself a recovering control freak, and I'm still recovering because there's that's, I think that may be an ongoing process, but once you see once you surrender and once you begin to see the proof, and I'm talking about like even real life proof, not just wishy-washy butterfly and unicorn stuff. I'm talking about when you surrender, and then, for me, for example, to give a very specific example, I can't remember, I've shared this before, but I was a couple of years ago, I was going to the U.S. and my business is based in California, and I wasn't allowed to work while in the U.S. because of the visa status, and not wanting to jeopardize anything. I do what I'm being told. At the time, I was doing these divine love notes, which were daily divine love notes that I was sending out. And I knew that I was wanting to do them from a space of love, and I was only going to do them from a space of love. But I felt I was struggling because I had to create something like 30-ish. And I kept hearing a voice saying, check your Evernote, check your Evernote, I'm like, why am I checking my Evernote? And I checked my Evernote, and there was all of this material that I don't remember having made. But it was enough. And so that was just to give you one specific example of how when we surrender, things show up for us, and things fall into place, and it clicks. What was the question? Oh yeah, I was going to show you, because right before, I always pull some cards before, and I'm not like a tarot reader, like whatever, but right before I went on, I pulled some cards, and one of the cards that show up is this one. Now this one is in Danish, but it's the power card, and what this does is it has two sides of it. Either you need more structure, or you need to surrender the structure. And I thought that was so funny, because in terms of what you said, in terms of surrendering, that when we surrender, things align, things fall into place, and that. Why do you think that's so difficult for us?
Well, we live in a dichotomy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, for example, the 6-point star has always been a massive symbol for me, because the 6-point star, you've got the upper triangle, which is our universal self, our non-body self, our soul, our higher self. And then you've got the lower triangle, which is our physical body, our physical entities, the fact that we're here on planet Earth, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you've got these two merging to create one entity, which is who we are, the mixture of divinity and physicality, right?
Yes.
So ultimately, there is a sense of divinity, sort of the vastness of divinity getting smaller in order to manifest itself and to be made form, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And this is something that we're very, very well aware of. We're taught very early on to understand what lack looks like. We're taught very early on to understand when we don't have it, what it feels like.
Yes.
And this is taught almost as a survival skill.
Yes.
So then we start looking around us and start sort of like emanating the sense of lack and not having. Because it's taught to us as a survival skill. We need to know that we haven't got it. Do you know what I mean? And so ultimately then that starts to become something as a frequency that sort of emanates out of us. And it's very fear-based. So we're continuously in that space of like, I don't feel like I have it. I don't feel like I have it. So where do I need to go to find it? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so letting go of all of that anxiety has been very much about the surrender process. The surrender process of, I have no idea what's going on at this present moment. I have no idea of where I need to go and find a thing. Divine, show me. Do you know
Yes.
what I mean? It's that sort of surrendering, and that kind of like surrendering with an awareness and an intelligence behind it, and an openness and an internal opening that allows us then to get guided to what we need to do, guided.
Yes.
And it comes instantaneously. Once you sort of go, I have no idea, show me.
Yes.
And you've made all of that space,
Yes.
Evernote happens.
Yes.
Go to your Evernote.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's just one example out of many.
Yes.
And there's the I like to say that there is a we've been given the five senses. I think that's what you define as portals.
Yes.
But for me, those are actually there's another there's a I don't know, I've never seen it this way, but it seems like there's another layer, because while there is a seeing with the outer eyes and hearing with the outer ears, there is also a way of seeing with the inner eyes and hearing with the inner ears. And so there's a learning of that. There's a learning to, like you said, shut up and be quiet, so you were able to hear and see from another space and place.
And again, that's speaking to that sort of journey of the physical, and because we tend to make it the physical and the spiritual, so we tend to make these two things very separate.
Yeah.
You know? Almost like
polarized.
there's a divide between them.
Yes.
Yeah. Where ultimately, when you're talking about the inner and the outer, the inner and the outer sight, the inner and the outer hearing, you're talking about a seamless relationship between the both. So there's a physical eyes that sees you, that sees the environment, that is very invested in touch and feel and material. And then there's the inner eye, which is actually showing us our universal self. And can we allow that interplay, which I'm seeing almost as a figure eight, that infinite?
Yes.
Can we allow the interplay between those very seamlessly?
Yes. Yes. And for me, like, so I call it the lid, because the lid flew off a couple of years ago, and I don't understand how, because I'm very, very business, very structured, very organized, very that. But I don't see how I can be that without my opening, my intuition, my gnosis, my download, my whatever it is that's going on. In terms of, I don't know, I heard the word vibration. And when you spoke about the inner and the outer, there seems to be, is there a vibrational match? Because the thing is, like, when people talk about high vibe and stuff, I get like, because it's like, oh, we just got to be high vibe. Well, it's the reason why we raise our, and to me at least, why we raise our vibration or our energy is so that we're able to transmute more shit and stand for more, hold space for more, and continues. It's not so that we get to quote unquote the next level and then we're like, hallelujah, see ya suckers, you can now, I'm going to heaven. It's like we're all one, right? So I do the work for the collective, and if I don't give back to the collective and don't serve the collective, then why is it there's this idea of spirituality be like my enlightenment, but it's not it's our, and so vibration, the word vibration came up, and I don't know why. Do you know why, like, what's going on with the vibration? And because in the energy healing and the energy work that you do, I assume that there's, because I also felt it in the activation that you did, there's a clear vibration of sorts.
So you were just talking about sort of vibration and frequency in terms of what I would call maybe a 3-dimensional paradigm of basically these layers or structures that are in place, and so we need to actually be very good human beings so we get to the next layer, and then we look down at the other people that haven't been such good human beings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me personally speaking, exactly like you're saying, it's never been shown to me that way. I don't feel it that way. It's never been, which is one of the reasons why I said to you right at the very start, there was such a big divide between dogmatic religion. Not that I have any problems with Catholic religion in any way, shape, or form. I feel like the teachings of Jesus is fabulous, and there's amazing things in the midst of all of that. But the dogma of it that allows me to feel better than you, or to feel myself as more worthy than you, or a better human being than you, or somehow more blessed than you, is false. Because literally, if we are looking at divine embodiment, we are looking at divinity expressing itself in many shapes and forms. And so there is no division between you and I, apart from the perception of being division, right? So when I talk about like high vibration and high frequency, it's more from an understanding that we need to cultivate elements of ourselves in order for the divinity that's all around us to meet us in a certain way, in a certain place. If I am in a place of deep lack and fear, so I'm in a place of like, I really don't have it. The world is really against me here because I've had the crappiest of upbringings. I didn't have it around me, do you know what I mean? Like to show me the way forward. It's just like this world sucks. When we're in that vibration, divinity can only meet us from what we're able to see through the 5 portals, right?
Yes.
Through how connected we are with the inner portals, right?
Yes.
Divinity can only meet us from that space. And so we can only get shown what we're able to see. You see?
Yes.
So when we start to open up ourselves to higher frequencies, to higher vibrations, which might mean that, I'm still feeling fear, I'm still feeling lack, but I know that there's something more, and I know that I'm not able to see it all. Show me. There's a sense of basically you're opening up to an expectation of something being different. You're opening up to the fact that you feel a boundary here doesn't mean that your world is limited to this. That there's something further than that.
Yes.
You're opening to the dissolution of that boundary in order to know what is further.
Yes.
So for me, that is where the higher vibration and the higher frequency comes in. It comes in from the fact, like I say, the divine divinity can only meet you where you can meet yourself.
Yes, that's so beautiful. Yes. And I had an image of when, because I know very clearly when my quote unquote, I wouldn't say awakening, but like when this for me began, I was on my bathroom floor. It's one of those stories where you were on the bathroom floor and you were crying for help, and you realize that there's someone who's crying for help, and then there's something else, and that something else is still, at peace or fine, and it was just like, that was the and that's what I hear. That gave me the understanding, okay, there's something that I'm quote unquote striving for. I wouldn't say striving because it's not a strive, as it's not like a sprint. It's just a slow moving. I'm not even going to call it a marathon because I don't think it ever ends, but there's a opening up and a calling in of that. And one of the things that keep coming up for me is the word ancestors, and the word and us standing upon the shoulders of those who came before us, because I see that the work that we do as being foundational for those who come after us, so that we're clearing up the muck and the dirt and the shit right now, and then they are then able, like their seeds are able to be planted in another more fertile ground. And that's not like, that's been going on for centuries and decades even. So it's and that is maybe that is the rise of all of us, and the divine.
For me, basically, life is a continuum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very, very, very aware of ancestry, and I can feel it almost vibrationally. And when I say vibrationally, I can feel it like if I start talking about ancestry, I feel it like a sensation at the back of my heart.
Yes.
I'm aware of energy moving backwards, basically.
Yes.
I'm aware of, um, and I'm also aware of myself being informed by that energy. And previously, what would happen is that we would be very accepting and almost very like in a surrender mode when it came to our ancestry. So it'd be like, I've been handed these genes and I've been handed this template, and that's it. I've been handed it, so that I've just got to live that out, right? And one of the things that has come to me in terms of embodying my own divinity is that I offer that ancestral line a different story. And when I say that, I mean the energy that I can feel coming forward is not only something that I surrender to as just like receiving and having no influence over. What I'm actually beginning to understand is that by doing the work of unpeeling and delayering and releasing, there's an energy that's actually returning backwards through that ancestral line that's very healing. And so what comes forward then through the ancestral line, exactly like you're saying in terms of the future,
Yes.
Is coming forward with a grander clarity just by this work that I'm doing.
Yes.
And it's being amplified in a way that it allows people to entrain around me.
Yes.
By that amplification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I just had I saw an image when it was like, I saw the peeling back of the layers and the healing, like it's like the wounds, like the healing, the healing is happening and it has happening so that you could, yes, beautiful. Yes. 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 And it also, it's not only your line, but it's those, like, because it's emanating through you. I was going to say from you, but it's through you ish, like, so that it becomes like one of those tuning forks where things like when things that are out of tune or out of sync, yes, they fall away and they raise the vibration. Yes. Wow, I just had that image, and that's what happens. Yes. Yeah. And so if you were to think of embodying one of your great teachers, so who would be a great spiritual teacher for you? Well, the first one that comes to mind is of course Yeshua, because he was probably the first that showed up. Elvis is another one. Elvis, but so I've heard people say that and this, some may take this as blasphemy, but they probably left this show a long time ago if they thought that. And that he's a reincarnation of Yeshua. But Yeshua is for me one of the great ones, and then of course his wife Mary Magdalene, as well. Okay, so if you were to Mary Magdalene, and Yeshua, but if you were to take Mary Magdalene, right? How long ago did Mary Magdalene live in physical form? Just that could even be a rhetoric question. Like yes, it doesn't really need an answer. But actually, notice how she is still influencing you. Notice how you're still in training to that frequency of energy that she emanated all those years back. And notice how you're bringing that frequency into present time. Yes. And notice that frequency now is, just by the mentioning of it, is starting to emanate and pulsate between us. Yes. And to me, this is it. It's like basically, yes, we have our ancestral line, but just by what we're being as well, we offer an emanation of a frequency of energy that allows people to entrain
in our own communities, in our own tribe, in our own family, in anybody that you come into contact with. When you're holding a level of frequency, it allows an entrainment. If you're empowered enough to root that frequency and empowered enough to kind of like hold it strong so that it becomes a real recognizable emanation, then you end up with that kind of Mary Magdalene sort of frequency where like thousands of years later, somebody's still going, that frequency, it's like I can feel it in my bones. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And I can feel it going back and forth between us. It's very like, I'm like, if I'm not saying anything, it's because I'm like, woo, I'm on this ride right now of this energy.
So this for me is embodiment, because we can actually pray to Mary Magdalene till the cows come home. And then there's a big, massive divine, because we've shut off our crown chakra. And we put her in this sort of like pedestal kind of zone where like actually, oh, she's this amazing thing, and look at me, this nothing thing of a woman praying to this amazing thing, you know. And for me, basically, what we're doing here is we're talking about embodiment of a frequency that was emanated by her. And once we're talking about that, we're talking about cellular, and we're talking about DNA level of embodiment.
Yes.
Talking about feeling it, and we're talking about emanating it, and we're talking about walking down the road and entraining people with our emanation of it.
Yes.
It's a different thing, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is. And it's the thing that comes up for me is because so in the work that I do, I mentor people and I hold space. So I don't, well, it's wrong to not, because I don't call myself an energy healer, but I know that healing happens in the space of our sessions, the sessions that I hold for people. I know that something's going on and I'm not really sure what it is. But when you talk about Mary and also Yeshua, one of the things that really comes up for me is how, because that is I've come to terms with it, because Yeshua has been very clear to me about, like, listen, if it hadn't happened this way, I wouldn't be as known as I was. I wouldn't have had this quote unquote seed planted. Because I don't really, the whole religion part, like, for me, the very clear message was what I can do, you can do. He was here to demonstrate, and to teach us to demonstrate. He was here to demonstrate, and she was as well here to demonstrate through their being and their doing what we are able to do ourselves. And that for me has gotten so lost in all of the dogma, in all of the do this, and to me, that's why he was crucified, was because he was, like you said, it's the cutting off. He was relearning or reteaching people to connect within.
But also, Yeshua was whenever I feel Yeshua, I feel bad boy of a time, right?
Yeah.
He did not give a shit. He was very, very, very strong, very opinionated, very rooted, very, very, very willing to upset people if it was not in line with the frequency and vibration that he was here to emanate.
Truth.
And so for a lot of people who, and it still exists in our society where we operate on appearances, we're here to demonstrate outwardly a certain thing while inwardly we're not feeling anything of that thing. Where we have these hierarchies, and I feel better about myself the more I climb up that ladder.
Yes.
It's not saying anything to what my inner feeling is.
The Instagram life.
So basically, he, to a large extent, was there to dismantle that.
Yes.
But when you're dismantling it on a level that is, you're then starting to talk to the structures that are in place that our society is built on. Then people have to get rid of you because you're creating too much of a problem.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, he
was so strong, and he was so not concerned if people were troubled by what he was doing.
Yes.
Yeah. And so as a result, brought forward a very, very pure line of a frequency.
Yes. Yes. it's that, like I said, it's that Instagram life, right? It's like my life is all perfect and there's like nothing, and it's not like that. I mean, if you're on a spiritual journey, and you will be in this lifetime or another, at some point of another, you're going to go through this. And you know, I have this thing that I like to say. It's like, you know, if you expect the heavens to open and angels to descend and rose petals to be strewn because now you've chosen love and you've chosen this, then then I'm sorry to tell you, that's not what happens. It's like, oh, you're just going to be, you know, you're going to be dragged through the mud. You're going to be asked, because it's internal work, you know, of clearing. I call it unveiling. Like the more you're ready, like you're ready for your next step, then you unveil another layer and you heal and you do the work and you
But I do have to say though one thing, because the drag experience that we experience, so that experience where we're on the bathroom floor and we're like literally pounding the floor because
yes,
we're so anguished, or we feel like we're being dragged through a hedge backwards. A lot of that comes from resistance.
ooh,
And a lot of it comes from kicking and screaming, right? It's like
ooh,
kicking and screaming, being dragged down a place that we know that's where we're supposed to be going, or we had an inkling quite a long time ago, and that inkling's just been getting stronger and stronger and
yes,
stronger and stronger until
yes,
we can't ignore it anymore.
yes,
But for some people, it's a bit like what I call the Jenga effect. You know those, you
yeah,
know, puzzles where like
yeah,
you
yeah,
basically
yeah,
take
yeah,
one puzzle, you take one thing out, and then the thing starts to go like this, and then everything, all the blocks are on the
yes,
floor. We
yes,
don't always have to get to that place.
no,
We do not always have to get to that place. I mean, it can be very, very, very seamless,
yes,
very painless even. Do you know what I
yes,
mean? It doesn't
yes,
have to be rooted in deep trauma.
no,
And so there is a sense that, you know, you can create the angels, the
yes, yes,
choir of angels singing and the rose petals. If you want to, you can. That is possibly something that can happen.
absolutely.
So we don't want to negate that, but at the same time, yeah.
But do you think, because for me, because I have the same experience,
Mm,
but it took me, so I call what you call the Jenga, I call rude awakenings. It's
mm,
like it's like you had gravel in your shoe and you could, for a while you can kind of, it's okay, you
yes,
can push it aside and you can kind of keep walking it, and in the end you end up with a big sore and blister if you don't do something about it.
mm,
And for me, um the journey, because I would say, I'm not, I don't want to say that I'm 100% there, but I want to say that I'm at the space where, you know, when things start, when I feel a discomfort or something, I'm like, okay, what's that? What's going on? And I want to dive into it rather than just let it be until it, you know, like you say, explodes or fall apart.
yeah.
But for me, there had to be an unlearning of the ignoring and the suppression. There had to be a relearning of the allowing and the surrender
Mm,
into it.
mm.
Because does that make, because
Yes,
and
yes.
and I think, I don't know, but I think that maybe some of the new souls that are coming in also, quote unquote, I won't say have it easier because everyone have their own thing to deal with, but there's been a clearing where it's, they no longer have to learn through pain and but we can learn through pleasure and expansion and abundance rather than lack and fear, and
Yeah.
is my,
Your perspective becomes your experience to a large extent. I mean, and when I say that, I mean there are things that are deeply uncomfortable. You know, so I'm not saying that's not true. Like basically, once you come up against your boundary, you're coming up against something that's deeply uncomfortable because everything past that boundary is unknown to you. And
mm,
our society has taught us to fear the unknown because that means that actually something could jump out and kill us.
yes,
So like literally when we get to our boundary and we feel the boundary starting to disintegrate, for a lot of people, that's high time to start tensing up. Do you know what I mean? It's like the time when like anxiety's like, yeah, right up there, you know, it's kind of like everything is tense, everything is
mm,
like fighting that. And for me personally, and I say that from the point of view of like, my life feels like it's just a completely, just peeling off layers. That's what I feel like I'm continuously doing, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I feel to a large extent that once I'm actually aligned to divinity, it makes what was outside that seems so like the worst thing that could possibly happen, it it gives it a different viewpoint. It gives it a different experience. It gives it a different frequency. It
Yes.
allows me to feel into expansion and growth that's coming from it.
Yes.
Um, it allows me to feel into acceptance. It just allows me to surrender a bit more to that.
Yeah.
So always it's like bringing the attention back to central line. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it changes everything of that experience.
Yes. It's like I keep hearing the word osmosis. It's like because osmosis is like where there is a barrier and energy just flows through it. It doesn't come up against it. It's not really there. It's like there's it's an absorption or yeah.
Yeah, you become sort of transparent or translucent, basically.
Yes. Yes.
It's like there's no resistance to that energy flow or frequency that's coming through.
No.
And the thing as well for me is as an energy worker, I've actually realized that, you know, everything is about waves of frequency and vibration. And by that I mean, you could be walking down the road and suddenly you feel deep joy about something. And what we tend to do is then we tend to pull the analytical mind in and go, oh, so where's that coming from? And then you will drum up some sort of picture that actually would say to you, the last time you felt that was this time. And so that's what it's about, right? And so like basically, and then you start to sort of like feel that even more because you've got that picture to latch onto. But ultimately, if you just allowed yourself to feel what was going on in that moment of you know, just feeling joy emanating. It's a wave. It comes in, it does what it needs to do, it emanates, and then it becomes something else.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same for those things that we feel really uncomfortable about. You know, there's times when people trigger me in a specific space, for example. I feel instant anger because they said something and my righteousness comes to the fore. And then if I just manage to take a deep breath, I actually then tune into, that's a sensation, that's a frequency. What's that pointing me towards on the inside? What wants to be expanded? What wants to be opened up? What wants to be released here? And in that moment, you can almost thank that person. In fact, very often I do. Do you know what I mean? Not always outwardly, verbally, but like basically, man, I didn't even realize that was still in there. You know, let's open this out. Let's get some air in here.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, completely, 100. It's like the mirroring, that like the triggering. It's not that I don't get triggered, well, but it doesn't happen as often anymore. So when it does, I'm like, ooh, like, why am I triggered? What's going on? It becomes like I become the nerd. I'm like, ooh, I gotta figure out what that is. That's So it's like a mirror or opportunities for healing and learning, I suppose, is what it is. Tash, I think we could go on forever and ever, but I think we're coming to a close. But I'm wondering if there's anything, is there anything unsaid or something that's on your heart or mind that you would like to say?
One very final thing. It took me so long to embrace myself as a healer, myself as an intuitive, to embrace myself as a holder of a frequency that is here to emanate that frequency out. To even have this language, it took me so long. And for me personally, it's come to the point now where there's a demystifying of this way of being, and opening up for a healing of this way of being, that people like maybe you and certainly people like myself are becoming less concerned about the judgment around it and more concerned about the flow that's happening within ourselves through it.
Yes.
And I feel like that needs to be said, because there's so many people that are coming into the fore, and through the work that I'm doing, I'm hearing so many people like they're waking up, and there's still hesitancy of how will I be seen, and will I be, cast out of society because I'm this way.
Yes.
For me, personally speaking, be who you are. Allow that to come through, because this is what you're here to do. If you're feeling that as a wave that's coming through you, to express it.
Yes.
Be like, just be who you are. Be who you are.
I agree. That's like, I'm sure that people have different notions about me, and certainly because, like I said, I come from a financial background, and I am a very corporate background. But I can't not be who I am.
Absolutely.
I have, and I'm not either or. I'm both. I am like, I'm spirit and matter. I am human and divine. I am.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And beautiful too.
Thank you. And you too.
Absolutely
The
beautiful.
thing is, I've been looking at your pink sweater the whole time, and I know you can't see, but I'm just gonna do like this. But I don't know if you can see it, but actually behind me, my chair, I have a pink cover. So I'm like, there's pink. But Tash, I want to say, I'm so grateful for you being willing to come into this space, and for having given us, your beautiful activation, and your beautiful words, and your wisdom. And I will say that if people want to find out more about you, I'll make sure that I include your website and so forth in the show notes, so they can go there for that. And other than that, I'm just gonna say thank you.
And I'll say exactly the same. I feel the work that you do. I see the work that you do. I feel the energy that's emanating from you with regards to where you want to go with it. And I feel you bringing these two worlds together, of what I call the analytical and the intuitive.
Yes.
Bringing these two worlds together, because they were never meant to be separated. So actually, it's very, very beautiful work. So thank you. I'm honored to have been here with you and to share space with you.
Thank you, Tash.
That is what we have for you in today's episode of the Magdalene Voices. I hope it served you well. If you are listening to this via podcast, know that you can go to my website, mariaestela.com. That's mariaestela.com for all of the deeds and the details. Finally, I hope you will take a moment to either leave us a comment or review, and share it with your friends on social media. God bless.